Welcome to part 2 of the EDSE 510 video lecture. This is our lecture for Unit 9, which is a 2-week unit. So we're taking a look at the rest of the PowerPoint that we started, and then we'll continue through the course content. Some ideas for supporting students with SED and emotional or behavioral support needs in avoiding exit from high school without a diploma would be to hear their thoughts, get students involved. Once again, leadership opportunities can be very helpful and meaningful for many. Ensuring that they're plugged into extracurricular activities as appropriate or as possible, especially for students who generally might feel unsuccessful in school or might feel challenged in their school abilities. This can be a great way for them to find a sense of mastery, make some positive peer connections in a setting that might not be as demanding for them in the same way. And that can be really helpful, turning things around. Another positive opportunity in these extracurricular activities would be bonding and connecting with an adult, a trusted adult who's not presenting them with academic content every single day. So that can be a great factor here. And monitor risk factors, engage with district resources, wraparound services as appropriate. And smaller units can be helpful. Consider home-based type programs or center-based as appropriate. So students will be evaluated for the least restrictive environment. And there are times when SED or effective needs center-based programs are determined to be the LRE. That can give students kind of a place to go back to when they're experiencing overwhelm or escalation or just need a break to utilize a coping skill. And as mentioned previously, school to work programs, partnering with those, getting into the community, check-in strategies, and vocational education. So opportunities for hands-on programming, even if those are not at the school site itself, there are some options in some districts to transport students and some options for concurrent enrollment. So while that might not be an opportunity that is open to every student at every moment in every situation, it is good to research and investigate. It's definitely worth looking into in situations where that would be appropriate. Early childhood, this all starts very early. So for students with SED, but also for students without, the preventative measures when we're looking at dropout can start even before they reach K-12 settings with interventions in the classroom and really, solid instruction for emotional regulation. Many schools and programs, especially even at a young age, will implement zones of regulation as part of a curriculum, so that can be a helpful one for many. Working and partnering with families, as always, this is beneficial at any age level, and it's valuable to start this as early as possible. Service learning, there is a link here that you can review many different positive consequences that can come from this for students who are engaged, plugged into that work in the community outside of the school setting, whether that be more of a box packing or unpacking type of a task that doesn't involve a lot of social interaction, but perhaps is for a nonprofit or some kind of organization where students feel that they're helping others. There can be volunteer work, even in a community setting such as a hospital or a garden or any kind of facility that assists individuals who are dealing with difficulties in their lives. Any of those may be valuable or helpful. I've definitely seen great success with community projects, service learning that can be done outside. If the weather's nice, that can be great to get involved with gardening or weed pulling, landscaping. Every student obviously has a different interest, so it's important to pick something that's appropriate for them, but I have seen that as a positive and valuable experience for students, and they often enjoy getting out of the classroom for a day and doing something in the community. Very important at all levels, but particularly for students as they near their exit from high school, to learn communication skills, continue to work on emotional regulation and perspective taking. Perspective taking is essential, as well as emotional regulation and communication in the workplace and in post-secondary education and training programs. So as we all know, the workplace presents us with many different people, supervisors and colleagues, even if we are not in a customer-facing role. And it's nearly impossible to avoid some interaction with others, which can often lead to frustration or difficulty because everybody's quite different. And so these frustrations, especially if a student is working a lot of hours, will inevitably present themselves. So these skills are very valuable, not only for finding a job through an effective interview process, but for maintaining a job. The executive functioning required to monitor a schedule, to get up and prepare for work, to bring the necessary materials, and to be there on time. All of this is very important. So practicing those skills of problem solving, conflict resolution, and successful decision making. As always, progress monitoring is key. There are a couple links here that you can review. Many different rating systems that might be used. There are a lot of rubrics, particularly that mental health professionals might use, but these can be shared with teachers as well as appropriate. And tracking with observations, for instance, self-advocacy. Did the student ask for help when he or she encountered a problem? Did the student ask for help with or without a prompt from an adult? How many prompts were given, etc. That's an important way to monitor progress towards IEP goals. There are some suggestions here for accommodations which may be appropriate for a student with SED experiencing anxiety or difficulty focusing in a testing setting. Particularly, this may be effective not only for classroom tests, but for standardized assessments. And that is the end of that presentation. So please do review that going along with your reading. There is another presentation here as we move into part 2 of Unit 9, looking at the issues of bullying and suicide. So obviously these are difficult topics. View at your discretion. We already had that component in a previous unit regarding sexual abuse and crimes against individuals with disabilities. So obviously the topic of suicide can be a very difficult one, but please do at least review this presentation for the issues regarding bullying and cyberbullying, because those topics are quite relevant and applicable to us in the school setting, as well as the issue of suicide if you're able to review those. So you'll see that that PowerPoint is provided to you here in the second part of Unit 9. So you can go ahead and download that, and you'll see some different topics and statistics in addition to strategies for educators. There is a system here that is reviewed as an option for school-wide programming to reduce bullying and those targeting or inappropriate social interactions that can cause intimidation, discomfort, and a lack of safety within the school setting, whether that be physical or emotional safety. And there is a written link here to supplement along with an article. So do check that out. Compare and contrast to what you see in your present or previous settings or what you hope to see in your future setting. There is a module from the APA with information about bullying and a couple other links here with a focus on cyberbullying, or the Colorado Department of Education has put together many different resources on bullying prevention. There are some interesting comparison statistics here from just a couple years ago regarding bullying across the U.S. and even in comparison with other countries. So those will be interesting to review. Keep in mind with any statistical information, this is all about what is reported. So we know that there are many things that take place that unfortunately adults who can help do not hear about. And we do need to keep that in mind. So obviously no data is perfect, but it's still interesting to examine these reported incidents. Here is an article on the whole school approach to bullying. This is optional, but I would encourage you to at least open these. Whether you plan to pursue a role of administration in the future or not, it's good to think about. Many of you will have supervisors who are administrators if you yourself do not pursue administration. So it's always good to keep these factors in mind, things that administrators can do. Here is the second document. Several different suggestions for things that people can do in a preventative way, school leadership, and of course you can also implement and suggest these regardless of your role, even if you are not an administrator. Finally, here is the paper that will be due on the final Sunday of this unit by 11:59 p.m. There is a requirement for literature, evidence-based articles, and you can find those on the UNC website, that are no older than 5 years old in this assignment. But if you find a really good one that's over 5 years old, that's okay. You can reach out and ask me about it. This is not so strict that it excludes a valuable resource, okay? But it's just the concept of, in general, we want to stay with current research when we're writing papers like these. The main idea of this paper is to identify your philosophy about special education. You want to have at least 10 sources. Rather than using those lengthy direct quotations, we really want to paraphrase and give your own ideas while you're interpreting the thoughts of the author. You will cite in APA 6th edition format. And this is really clearly outlined here in bullet points, but you're going to summarize the field of special education, taking history into consideration, practices, instructional and identification models, things that are new or perhaps things that are no longer used, standards. Expand your thinking past law and really think about practice and kind of the spirit of the law and not just the letter. What is this all about? You will discuss the influence of both case law and federal or state law and the influence on the field and on practice. Can go ahead and look at recent case law if you can find it, and do share that information in your paper. And this will outline the rough page numbers that you can use for each of these sections. Keep in mind cultural learning differences, the implications of cultural differences within the school setting are vast and wide, so please do really clearly highlight that as you go. And ethical practices for special educators. You'll also provide a detailed description here of your own personal beliefs. You want to connect to the other things that you have discussed and you're learning in this course. How has all of this information influenced your philosophy? What do you believe about special education and education as a whole? What is our purpose? Why do we have things in place that are in place? How do we need to grow? How can we build upon what we have and learn more and change? All of these topics are important to address in this paper, so really keep that big picture lens as you go. And then think about practical application of your beliefs. How will you integrate these? So not just conceptually here in this final part, but really with that hands-on approach. What will I do to keep my practice in alignment with these thoughts and with my stance on these topics? And then right here, keep in mind you're expressing your own philosophy. So you will frame your paper using the influences of the sources that you use on your educational philosophy. There is a little visual here, if that's helpful. And then, of course, there is a rubric, as always. So it is a fairly lengthy paper, but there are many, many important topics to address. If you need help, as always, please let me know if you've got questions, and I look forward to reviewing your submissions. And that is it for our unit. Have a wonderful week, and we'll be in touch again as we move into week 2 with another announcement.